Hey, everybody, welcome to day 129 of our 2020 Focus Bible reading. We are on to Luke chapter 20. And so Jesus is in Jerusalem. This is, time he's teaching. And so he's in Jerusalem during the day teaching. He's going to outside of Jerusalem for the evening. And the tensions are starting to mount. And so you were going through two chapters where you can begin to kind of see Jesus teaching and how that's rubbing the authorities the wrong way. And it starts this way. One day, Jesus was teaching the people in the temple courts and proclaiming the good news. The chief priests and the teachers of the law, together with the elders, came up to him. "Tell us by what authority you are doing these things," they said. "Who gave you this authority?" He replied, "I will ask you a question. Tell me, John's baptism, was it from heaven or of human origin?" They discussed it among themselves and said, "If we say from heaven, he will ask, 'Why didn't you believe him?' But if we say of human origin, all the people will stone us because they are persuaded that John was a prophet." So they answered, "We don't know where it was from." Jesus said, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." He went on to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard, rented it to some farmers, and went away for a long time. At the harvest time, he sent a servant to the tenants so that they could give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the tenants beat him and sent him away empty-handed. He sent another servant, but that one also they beat and treated shamefully and sent away empty-handed. He sent a third, and they wounded him and threw him out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my son whom I love. Perhaps they will respect him." But when the tenants saw him, they talked the matter over. "This is the heir," they said. "Let's kill him, and the inheritance will be ours." So they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come to those tenants and give the vineyard to others. When the people heard this, they said, "God forbid." Jesus looked directly at them and asked, "Then what is the meaning of that which is written? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces. Anyone whom it falls on will be crushed." The teachers of the law and the chief priests looked for a way to arrest him immediately, because they knew he had spoken this parable against them. But they were afraid of the people. Keeping a close watch on him, they sent spies who pretended to be sincere. They hoped to catch Jesus in something he said so that they might hand him over to the power of authority of the governor. So the spies questioned him, "Teacher, we know that you speak and teach what is right, and that you do not show partiality, but teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" He saw through their duplicity and said to them, "Show me a denarius. Whose image and inscription are on it?" "Caesar's," they replied. He said to them, "Then give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." They were unable to trap him by what he said there in public, and, astonished by his answer, they became silent. Some of the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to Jesus with a question. "Teacher," they said, "Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife but no children, the man must marry the widow and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first one married a woman and died childless. The second and then third married her, and in the same way the 7 died, leaving no children. Finally, the woman died too. Now then, at the resurrection, whose wife will she be, since the 7 were married to her?" Jesus replied, "The people of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy of taking part in the age to come and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage, and they can no longer die, for they are like the angels. They are God's children, since they are children of the resurrection. But in the account of the burning bush, even Moses showed that the dead rise, for he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive." Some of the teachers of the law responded, "Well said, teacher," and no one dared ask him any more questions. Then Jesus said to them, "Why is it said that the Messiah is the son of David? David himself declares in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.' David calls him Lord. How then can he be his son?" While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." All right, so you can clearly see there is some tension that's brewing between Jesus and the teachers of the laws, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all of the religious leaders that are in place. First question of authority. Um, I love that Jesus is like, I'm not going to tell you either. If you're gonna be dishonest and not say that, hey, John had God's authority, I'm not going to tell you where my authority comes from either. And then talks about the tenants, obviously aiming at them. They knew it. He knew it. He told that story for a reason. He is predicting what is to come. They don't necessarily see that, but he knows what's happening. I love the fact that he knows that people are after him, and that he is. This shows the power of Christ, and this is the part of it. How much does Christ know in his earthly body? He is limited. He gets hungry. He gets tired. He gets thirsty. Clearly, he dies. So there are limitations within his humanity. But he is seeing into the heart of people. He knows when they're coming after him. Now that can just be his own wisdom, or it can be a supernatural insight into the hearts of those around him, which I would lean in that direction. Just as he is performing miracles and doing things that as human beings we can't do, the power of God is working in Jesus, and I think even more so as he's coming closer to the kind of pinnacle of what's going to happen in the week to come. And Jesus is definitely, he sees what's going on and he's calling it out. And I just love the passage of taxation, where it talks about, render to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And the reason I love that is, one, it's because there's an image pressed into a coin that is Caesar's, so that's obviously Caesar's. Give to God what is God's. Well, what is God's? That's us. We are impressed with his image, created in the image of God, and therefore we render ourselves to God. I just love that imagery. I love that thought. It's probably my favorite part of this passage. Then you get into questions about marriage and what does marriage look like in heaven. And so they're asking, this woman was married to 7 brothers. One, I don't know what parent lets their brothers keep marrying this woman, and they keep dying. I think there would be an investigation at some point. Don't really quite know what's going on, but obviously they're using an extreme example. They could have stopped it too, and hey, who's she married to? When it comes down to it, it's one of the things that's why the marriage vows say, "Until death do we part," for Christian marriage. Because we do not believe in that, that the marriage relationship remaining the same. That doesn't mean we don't have relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't have a special relationship with our spouse on the other side of death. It does mean that the marriage vows are completed at death. And that's a Christian teaching. That is something that's in here. That's why I don't tell people, that their marriage is eternal when I do weddings, because it's not. It is bounded to an earthly relationship, and only death should separate that. And so that's part of why the Christian teaching is the way it is. And then again, it just kind of concludes with more angst between he and the teachers of the law. And this is really what these 2 chapters of teaching are trying to begin to set up. And so we'll see where it's going, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.